Good evening, everyone. My name is Hengis Satanta Smoochworth, and this is my first YouTube video. The topic of this evening's discussion will be the investigation to Russian election meddling, which I have come to believe, after some thought and some research, to be doubly insincere. The first insincerity is obvious and palpable, but I will still, nevertheless, take some time to discuss it and to make it clear. The Manafort indictment has drawn the attention of many outfits in the media, both left-wing and right-wing. The 12 charges in the Manafort and Company indictment have been seen on the left to be conclusive proof of Trump's inability to govern this nation as well as his treason. We are assured that more revelations and potentially more indictments are to follow. These indictments may well lead up to the president himself being indicted, and thus ending the Trumpian revolution. So much for the left-wing narrative. On the right, and with equally good reasoning, the focus has been on Clinton's involvement when she was Secretary of State with selling uranium to the Russians. To be clear, I believe the Uranium One deal to be dire to our national security, just as I believe it to be dire to our national security that a former campaign chairman of a sitting president was indicted under corruption and fraud charges. However, I am also sympathetic to the critiques of both of these narratives. On the one hand, the charges in the indictment against Manafort and Company do not bear directly on the presidential campaign, and on the other, Secretary Clinton was not directly responsible for the Uranium One deal. There were many other parties and bureaus involved in approving that exchange. It would be dishonest of me not to admit that I have more right-wing proclivities than I do left-wing. At the same time, though, I do believe that patriotism can be bipartisan or nonpartisan. Nothing to date strikes me as either bipartisan or nonpartisan thus far in the investigation, or at least the reporting thereabout. As with every story, I think it is useful to ask cui bono, that is to say, who benefits? The right benefits by shaming the Trump administration and clouding it in malfeasance, while the right benefits by shaming a potential Clinton administration, and by proxy, the Democratic Party. Each side castigates the other, unironically, and I think unsincerely. Yet this partisan spectacle continues to be read daily and viewed nightly. Unfortunately for America and for her media, though, there are more than two sides to this conflict. The Russian Federation, whether ally or adversary, is not the only other party involved. Unlike our national discourse, the Russian Facebook ads in question were bipartisan. Some favored Trump, others lambasted them, and some favored Clinton or lambasted her. Their purpose was presumably to sow division in America. America is, after all, a very fertile field for division. However these ads may have reflected the American discourse, I find them ultimately irrelevant. As Tucker Carlson, for one, pointed out when discussing the Manafort indictment, Russia, along with many other governments, spend countless millions on influencing our Congress. Discovering who spent what on whom is often very difficult, and this seems to provoke very little serious outrage by either left or right in this country. Senator Grassley of Iowa has introduced a bill, and I commend him for this, to strengthen the disclosure and registration requirements of those who lobby our Congress on behalf of foreign governments. The law, for those who are interested, that currently regulates how foreign agents lobby Congress is known as FARA, or the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Senator Grassley's bill, if enacted, would treat the agents of foreign governments lobbying our institutions just as foreigners with a much higher requirement. This seems to be much needed. Under the current law, about half of the paperwork required for foreign agents is turned in late. Senator Grassley's bill is known as the Disclosing Foreign Influences Act. I would love to hear in the comments if any of you had ever heard of this bill beforehand. I return to my former question, cui bono, that is to say, who benefit. Articles addressing Republican and or Democratic collusion are legion, but articles addressing structural, perhaps bipartisan reform are hard to come by. I find it very informative that foreign influence outside of elections and parties is seldom reported on, although it is quite common. News media are abuzz with stories of Hollywood corruption, but never are Harvey Weinstein and company and their disgusting predilections discussed in conjunction with foreign influence. Young actors and actresses' well being is far more often discussed in Hollywood than is foreign money. Let me tell you a few facts about foreign money in Hollywood, and you can decide whether it is more important than the well being of young actors and actresses. Last year, in 2016, Red China, that is to say, the People's Republic of China and its proxies, spent almost $5 billion in Hollywood. That spending was not merely limited to garnering production credits. The Chinese firm Dalian Wanda owns AMC, as it does legendary entertainment of the Dark Knight fame, which makes one wonder why Batman had to go to Hong Kong to solve an American crime. The plots of many films have been altered to suit Chinese censors, whether the production companies have been owned by Chinese proxies or not. Even the pure American hero Tony Stark, that is to say Iron Man, had to, in his most recent film, Iron Man 3, kowtow to the red dais of Communist China. The plots of Transformers 4, X-Men, Days of Future Past, Looper, and Gravity were also altered to suit the Chinese censors' taste. One can take some hope, though, that in 2017, Chinese investment in Hollywood has severely declined. Perhaps this is due to our new president. In response to foreign government money influencing our entertainment, Congress has had but one response. And mind you, that did not take a year. 16 congressmen protested Red China's tendrils wrapping themselves around our media institutions. 14 were of one party, 2 of the other. I will let you guess which. Red China is also not the only nation seeking to influence our media. Think back on the controversy surrounding the James Franco-Seth Rogen movie The Interview, and how North Korea prohibited it from being shown in our theaters. Cinema is, however, not unique. Millions of dollars from foreign corrupt regimes have infiltrated a much more ethereal and intellectual sphere of our nation. The profound and prestigious think tanks of the Atlantic Council and the Brookings Institutions for Interests are on the foreign tit. In response to this discovery, Congress did not have a year-long investigation. Instead, one single solitary Virginia Republican congressman wrote a, quote, strongly worded letter. Perhaps it is coincidence, and perhaps not, that the think tanks receiving foreign monies reportedly were of the center-left globalist variety. As think tanks have received foreign money and presumably influence, so too have American academic institutions. Prestigious universities such as Harvard and Georgetown have received millions. But the proud universities of the East are not unique in this. So too has the University of Arkansas received millions in foreign money. Much of this foreign capital comes from Saudi Arabia and the nation of Qatar. Much of this money has been spent in securing a pro-Islamist, or at least pro-Islam, curriculum amongst these institutions. Formally, and perhaps recently, the United States government has also seen fit to buttress Saudi petrodollars in influencing our K-12 education system with the benefit of taxpayer money. Do not wish to belabor my point, and I will state my point quite clearly. Foreign influence on American institutions and American politics is much wider than the nation of Russia and much wider than our electoral system. Facebook and the ad system is merely one aspect of it. I will concede that education and entertainment are not directly political. But if we are to have a sweeping investigation into foreign influence into our system and how the opinions of citizens are created, then clearly this investigation must be broader. I am of the perhaps cynical opinion that the reason the investigation has been drawn so narrowly is that it is for partisan gain. I am of the opinion that if this investigation is to be true and thorough, it must also include the left-wing pillars of our society, namely think tankery, academia, and entertainment. I am humbled and grateful for you listening to this. I would love to hear your thoughtful commentary below in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share.